This workshop, Monday, December 4th, 2017 at 6:30. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for coming, everybody. One personal note going into this is yesterday was the Jack Frost Festival, which went very well. It was a good turnout, a lot of people. I think it was good, receptive. Tree lighting went awesome. Mr. Mayo and his team did all the trees and between Otter River, Baldwinville, Templeton, and East Templeton, and they all looked very nice. So he did a really good job. So kudos to Alan Mayo and the staff. Okay, Templeton EDC. We got recommendations to pursue mass development grant for civil engineering services related to the industrial park development.
Glenn's here.
Glenn.
Invite him up.
Yep, Glenn, come on up.
You want me to sit next to you?
Yeah, why don't you sit right here?
Sure, no problem.
So this is a workshop, so you can sit right there.
Sure, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks. I'll take a
Yeah.
corner if that's okay.
Please, take a corner. I'll move over so you have plenty of paperwork there.
Actually, well,
Take a knee.
I get to share, take a knee.
Go take a knee.
No. Brings back great memories from high school football, I guess. 1, 2, 3. Could you take one pass down,
Sure,
please?
yes, just like
Thank
school.
you. Just like school.
This
Take
is
one.
great. Take one, pass
Take
it
one,
down.
pass it down. Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you. Too many teachers in the family, I guess. So I just copy and pasted the subjects for tonight, put them on the cover page. I just want to make it clear that there are two different subjects tonight. The first one for the Economic Development Committee, basically a request to the Board of Selectmen of the Economic Development Committee to submit a grant which has a payback provision. So that's my volunteer work. The second issue is my day job work, so I just wanted to make sure that that's clear for the
Okay.
record, okay?
All right.
Because I don't want to get myself or anybody else in trouble. Page 2, so there, so at the exit 20 area, we have the opportunity to tap into some site readiness grant services. I don't want to call them funds because it's a service that you can get delivered to a community to do some civil engineering light, if you will, or 10% design plans for the exit 20 area. The gist of this is that MassDevelopment, the quasi-state agency that does economic development on behalf of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, has the site readiness grant. They will provide services in a variety of different areas. I've spoken to them a couple times, them meeting Ed Starzik, who's our liaison contact with the communities. There is a payback provision for the services that MassDevelopment puts out in its programs to communities. And this particular request is, which we think at the Economic Development Committee makes the most sense if you want to look at page 3, to look at the visual, and north is left. As you look at this, if you like me and I need to always put north this way, just flip it around. Basically what you're looking at is Route 2 in Baldwinville Road, interchange, 3 areas that we sketched out. About a year ago, I asked one of my colleagues to sit down with me one lunchtime at the office because we do planning every day. So, yeah, the northeast quadrant, which is this larger area up here, plus the southwest quadrant, and we even sketched out the northwest quadrant, but that actually is state forest, and that's really not a target area right now, if you will. But each 4 of these corners or quadrants of the interchange are zone commercial industrial. The Mass Development Site Readiness Program basically has civil engineering services where they'll provide to a community for multiple areas owned by multiple entities, not just one owner, some civil engineering services. It gives you an idea what a sketch would look like if you start blueprinting out and cutting up land into basically industrial park lots. So we know that the locally referred to Fusel Farm property has been acquired by an entity, and they're pushing dirt around to do a development there right now, something in the world of car sales. And that's one owner of the former colonial cooperative property, which is about 53 to 55 acres. But above that, to the right, is a separate parcel that's owned by the Kimmelainen Trust. And then on the southwest quadrant, you have 1 or 2 owners at least down there. That's the kind of project that a Mass Development is looking for. They're not looking for a town to help just one owner. They're looking for some master planning, if you will, multiple owners, and try to get some jobs developed in an area. And they'll provide you with the what I'm gonna call, I mean, this is a sketch, but it's really like sketch civil engineering, 10% design plans. The payback provision kicks in when the land starts to develop and the town generates taxes off the development sites. Then there's a provision at some point in the future, then the town would be on the hook to pay back whatever the cost of the grant would be, which is still to be determined. Right now, we're just trying to apply for a grant to see what it might cost, and then there would be an opportunity to discuss, well, what the cost might be to the town before the town commits to actually signing what I would call a grant agreement, or some sort of contract between MassDevelopment and the Board of Selectmen. You would be in charge of this.
So is this image here, is
Yes.
this just a mock of some sort that you guys have drawn up, or is this actually what you guys are intending to do?
No, this is a mock that I did about a year ago with one of
Okay.
my fellow planners in my day job.
Yep.
Because she had done a lot of master planning for towns and colleges, and I said, let's just sit down. And what you're seeing is
What it would look like if.
what it could look like in a concept. And this is a
Okay.
concept plan. And quite frankly, now that the owner has looked at, purchasing a site, it's about 55 acres. So these little pieces of white paper that say 10 acres or 7.5 acres, it was just a concept for how she would, I said, draw on a road or a cul-de-sac, figure out how many development sites we could get in the context of, if you look closely through, you see these dark red areas. It's a little hazy because what you see is little pieces of white paper representing development sites over a piece of tracing paper, over a zoning map, a development site map.
I got you.
The red is a no-build area. It's primarily wetlands. The yellow is what you call partial constraints. Red is absolute constraints. If you see green, you can build on it.
Okay.
Okay, but there are then some other issues, like in this quadrant here, where it's state forest. That's like a no-touch zone right now, because you'd have to do a land swap with the state to trade out this area for maybe some other area in town. That's an issue for like 5 or 10 years down the road, if you ever cross that bridge. So it's a concept, and ideally, ideally you get Mass Development to draw a better sketch. That's all I really want to say.
So of
Sorry,
this,
Doug.
this quadrant here,
Yeah.
and probably this one are the most viable options.
Yes.
How much of this land, even though it's made by other owners, is actually vacant?
All of it.
All of it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You have
I
the
mean, like
frontage.
over here, this is where Templeton Furniture is.
Templeton Furniture.
No, that's, if you're going into Gardner, this, the bottom of that map's like Phillipston, so you'd be going in, so that would be where they're
Right.
putting in
No, I
that
thought
car
this was
lot.
exit 20.
Right. So turn it this way. So you can look north. Okay.
Right, so you're going west
Templeton
on Route
Furniture.
2.
Templeton Furniture is right in the lower left corner, right there.
Yep.
Okay. So actually, it's a black box. If I can lean over you, Eric, for just a second. I'm going to borrow the gavel. I'm going to point. Templeton Furniture is this black area right here.
Here.
And I'm going to call this the pumpkin patch, because that's where they grew pumpkins a few years
Okay.
ago for fundraising or something. I think the
Right.
Okay.
Lions or somebody did.
The Lions
right?
did, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So to get you better oriented, Doug.
Okay.
Does that help?
That is help.
Okay.
Okay, so this is all,
Now, because there's a payback provision, I obviously didn't want to go any further without saying, hey, Board of Selectmen, is this something that you would bless? So this is a workshop meeting. Carter, Holly put me on. Thank you, to explain and answer any questions if there were any.
I think you need some, right?
So, yeah, I mean, this is just applying for a grant. I mean, this is, so essentially, what you're bringing here, if I can kind of get a quick recap on that. So you're looking to get a grant to do a potential zoning of what it would cost to develop these prime areas.
The only word I would change, Cameron, is not zoning, but civil engineering.
Civil engineering.
Yes, because the zoning is underlaying. You're talking about some civil engineering.
Okay, so then they're gonna come
Right.
in and they're gonna draw you plans of how much it would cost to put a road in here, or what it would look like to, to-
Ideally, getting cost estimates is the ultimate goal.
Okay.
Ideally. Now, with a 10% design plan, I'm not sure if they offer cost estimates or not, but at least to get a blueprint sketch. Ideally, they'd send out a survey crew and do something and, and draw in a road and how many parcels they could get under current zoning.
Yep.
Yes.
Now
You got
is this what you're presenting here, or is this grant for what you guys see fit to bring to them? I guess would be my question. So I see this map here, and I know there's a railroad that crosses here, there's a cutoff here, this is gonna be, this is being put into a car place now.
Right,
Um,
right.
If you do
yeah.
get this grant.
Yeah.
Are you going to be using it on this mock draft up here, or in these areas?
This is just to seed the conversation with an engineer and say,
Okay.
okay, this was just an idea.
Okay,
Throw it away.
okay.
Just look under current zoning. Tell us how much land we could get developed under current zoning.
So you're seeing this for more of a consulting fee to see what
That's basically
they
what
would
it is.
recommend doing
Mass
for us.
Development has a stable of consultants.
Okay.
Engineers, market assessment consultants. And if the grant service is awarded to the town, then they would pluck one of their civil engineers and say, go to the town of Templeton, talk to Selectmen, talk to the EDC, talk to the building inspector, talk to the zoning person, and say, okay, well, understand the zoning, and what could fit.
That makes sense to me.
Basically, that's all
Put
it
in the
is.
hands of a professional, absolutely.
Exactly.
I
That's
agree.
what it's all about.
Yep.
And I just want to be crystal clear, so it's not a grant to the town of money to hire, it's Mass Development granting a service to the community to get you a civil engineered sketch.
Perfect.
I got
To
you.
calculate the value of that service, you need to be prepared to pay that back should
Right.
you
get
at some
developed.
point over some window or
Some window, which I don't know yet, we're still
Never
learning,
ending.
it's brand new. What happens is, in the grant proposal, in the narrative, it says, when, the repayment from the town to Mass Development happens only if the land develops. So they're not a lot of detail on the land, is it all the land, is it a partial, is it 25%? How long do you have to pay that grant service back? Was it $5,000 or $10,000 in civil engineering services? So all of those questions have to be resolved when you ideally get a grant award, and then you start asking questions that are more deep about, well, what's the maximum allowable service? Let's say it's, 10,000, I have no idea what the number's gonna be. I say, okay, great, well, within that 10,000, when do you get payback on this? When do we have to pay you back? Full build out of a quadrant, 50% build out? We just don't know. Because they don't provide that in the literature, and I don't think they're gonna provide that until they award the service.
Yes.
what if the land becomes developed for the normal and ordinary operation of the private sector? Does the town still have to pay back?
Yes, and that's the intent. The intent is that it would be developed by the private sector. The town realizes tax revenue, and a portion of that tax revenue, let's say it's 10 grand, you're gonna get, ultimately at build-out, you're gonna get 6 figures on this for revenue per year. Somewhere between $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 for these two quadrants. So out of that 100 or 2 or 250 or whatever it's gonna be over the long term at full build-out, they want a piece of that back. Let's say it's 10 grand. So I'm using very general numbers
I
to
gotcha.
paint the concept, and they don't provide detail now, but they provide detail later.
Now, when they provide that detail later, if
Yeah.
we decide that that was too much, we can decline it at that point
Absolutely.
in time?
Absolutely, no thanks, it's too rich for our blood.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely. My gut tells me, because they see a lot of these across the Commonwealth, is, you'll see the economic impact to the community and tax revenue. You'll see the portion of the payment that has to be made, and you'll say, oh, well, we can afford that out of the new revenue.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Right, and that's kind of basically what it says from future taxation.
Exactly, and that's how they term it. I just stole their language out of their grant, their request for proposals.
Yeah, I think this is an excellent idea. I mean, in my opinion, that's what we need to be doing, is we need to be consulting professionals, and especially if Mass is willing to lend a hand in this and develop these areas that are of prime interest, and kind of show companies that we're serious about developing this, and kind of push that idea that this is where we're headed as a community. So I think this is a step in the right direction, so I applaud your effort.
Well, thanks, Cam, and thanks to the board. I think the bottom line
Kirk in the back.
for me is,
Kirk in the back.
as one member of the EDC, we need a blueprint. You have to show the private sector you're serious.
Yeah.
And without some real blueprint to say, okay, this is what we want to build. Our zoning says this, we want commercial industrial, and we want jobs, and our master plan says this. We've even blueprinted it with Mass Development's help. We really want you here. And then you take pictures of that and you put it on the website and you start marketing and say, please build here, come build here. Yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Kirk, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, not questions so much as a statement, like Leonard just kind of hit on, is that, any business environment, they want to see what the flavor of the town is. If this town doesn't starting at the town father saying, we want your business, you can zone all you want. But as soon as somebody comes in, they get pushed back, they'll go to the next town. So this is a huge way for the.
And we've
for the
seen that
town-
already happen in
For the
Templeton.
town to get by it, and don't worry about the little committees below, but if they can't come in and have the support of the town fathers saying, we want your business, and you don't label what it is, it's still business, it's still industry, it's still tax base, it's still jobs. So you need to look at the big scope. There's a lot of private money out there. I happen to know some of it myself, I'm involved in some things going on in town, but they're not gonna invest if the town doesn't want it. There's a lot of other communities will take those millions of dollars. So really, it's a positive step. In other words, show our face. If we're serious about business, put your money where your mouth is. In this case here, I have to be on this committee as well. We're trying to do that. We're trying to help this board as the town, representative of the town, to show that face. Do we want business? Do we want jobs to pay for a new school? Show it.
Understood. Thanks, Ken. Thanks. I appreciate it, Kurt. Right. I don't have any other questions. I think you answered all my questions.
Okay,
I appreciate it.
thanks, John.
Job well done as usual.
So the temperature, does this make sense? I think, Carter, I think, you know, you have great questions, and I've been given 2 Fridays to give a sketch of the proposal, or, you know, some more fodder and narrative to Ed Starzyk at MassDevelopment. As I exchange email with him over the next couple of weeks, I'll try to ask more of these questions about, you know, how's that repayment provision work? Can you help educate? And the more I can pass that on to Carter and get it to you folks through Carter, I think would be
And
helpful.
you would have a final grant proposal for the board to sign off on before, because they would be the ones that need to accept it.
Right. Exactly. They actually have to take a vote. I need a letter from them signed by, showing support and so on, so, yeah. But I've got about 8 or 9 days to really, you know, put all the narrative together.
Okay.
But I want to meet with you first tonight before, because Ed just called me this afternoon.
So
Said,
the
"What's
next formal board meeting for votes is December 11th.
Okay,
Is that timely enough,
That works.
or?
that works. I'm confused, 9 to, that's next
Well,
Monday.
Yeah, we actually
It's-
need the stuff for it by Thursday is
Yeah,
the
it's
problem.
that's perfect timing.
Okay.
Yeah, I can provide you with more narrative then, by, you have like a Thursday deadline to get a packet together for the weekend, something like that.
6:30 is the deadline.
At the very least, I can give you 10 or
Thursday-
20
Thursday
bullets that.
noon,
yeah,
yeah.
Thursday noon.
Thursday noon. I can flesh out a lot more of this. A lot of it's written and drafted already. So it should be a problem. John?
Yeah,
I think, just FYI.
Yes, Kurt.
You know, and like as a developer, even this money here, I know Glenn said you want us to maybe show the whole layout, but when somebody comes to town, it doesn't matter how big the parcel is, it's what's developable. And so just being able to market these parcels, knowing that a 100-acre parcel isn't 100 acres, it's only 35. They need to know that, because it's a big expense, even just do wetland delineations.
Right.
I mean, even if we spent the money just for that, at least it lets the developer know what is the high and dry, what is their actual footprint they have to work with. Because the bigger the parcel, the more money it takes just to do your homework on. We can do a little bit of homework for them, we're a huge step forward.
Right. Thanks. Excellent. Do you have anything else?
Not on that topic.
Okay, let's go, you move to the next one?
Sure. So let me take off the volunteer hat, put the day job hat on. And so what we do at MRPC, one of the things that we do is we help towns prepare their community development block grants every year. The next block grant is due March 2nd.
Right.
And in the past few years, you've used COG, you used to use MRPC, we didn't know where you were, so we thought we owed you at least a conversation. If you never heard of CDBG before, that's what it funds on page 4. If you're using COG, then I'm gonna close this conversation, leave you alone, have fun at your workshop. If you're not using COG now or for the future, let us know, if we can assist. I wanna draw your attention to the third bullet on page 4. The next grant is due March 2nd, a slim chance of putting together a proposal this season. And I'd recommend that you not try to do one, because there's a lot of preliminary work in setting up primarily a local steering committee, a
Right.
community involvement committee, a community development steering committee. And that takes time where you flesh out the needs of a community, and that can take 6 to 9 months to do properly. The 1974 Community Development Act, signed by Richard Nixon, placed a great deal of emphasis on citizen involvement, and I just don't know where you are. I just don't know, the bottom line. So we've advised, as example, we've been working with Winchendon over the last 2 to 3 years. We advised them to create a community steering committee, community development steering committee. They've done so, and it meets about every 45 to 60 days. And it's a standing committee, meets all year round. What DHCD, the Mass Department of Housing and Community Development, hates to see is that, you appoint a committee, they're ad hoc, they come, they go. So this takes a lot of planning that goes into these things. And they fund housing rehab or affordable housing, they fund infrastructure, so I know you've done a lot of water work. We started the job to do the Back Bay, and then COG did it for you.
Right.
We do a lot of home heating fuel assistance, but the last bullet down there on page 4 is really important, have that long-term committee. And then page 5 is just how we've done in the past, what we've done for communities. So let us know if you need assistance, then we'll come back and then I'll bring my community development manager in, Brian Keating, and he would talk more to you about setting up a steering committee that the Board of Selectmen would appoint to get a citizen action committee or
Right.
development or a steering committee, whatever you want to call it, in place. And we'd recommend that you do that reasonably soon, let's say the winter, to set up the committee to start doing this for next February or March of 19. If you're already doing this, fine, then I've wasted 2 minutes of your time. If
No.
not, then I would say plant the seeds now for a better proposal next year. You want to build the most competitive proposal you can, and to try to do that in 90 days, when we're just talking about that now, and I don't know where you are on the topic, it's just too much too soon. So these take 6 to 9 months just to put together, and that's if you've got a committee that's working with you and the staff, like every 30 days.
Okay.
So it's just this is an FYI.
I got you.
Please take it under advisement. I would urge you to, as an entity that you pay an assessment to every year, we owe you this information. So,
Great. All right, well, thanks so much.
and
for
that's
your time.
really it. If there are
Any
any
other
questions on
questions?
that, then I would leave you alone if there
Any
are.
other questions, Doug?
FFY, what do you have, FFY in the years? Instead of just FY?
Federal
Second.
fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah, federal fiscal, so that's what that means. So the federal fiscal year started October 1 of this year for federal fiscal, what are we in, FY 18 or 17, whatever the hell we're in?
8.
So you actually apply 18? Yeah, no, 17.
17.
17.
We're
So
going
the
into 18.
last March of 17, we helped towns submit proposals for FFY 17 beginning October 1. So you're applying about 6 months ahead, and then the state doles out the awards in July, and then they sign contracts with you about in the fall to start with the new federal fiscal year's monies. That's why it says 2 Fs and a Y. Good question,
That's
I'm
all I
glad you
need.
asked.
That's all I
I put it in there somewhere, so just so you know.
Great.
Okay,
Okay, then I'll
Thanks
get
so
out of
much.
your
I
hair.
appreciate it.
All right, thank you for your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
thanks, Glenn.
Good seeing you.
Thank you. Stay warm.
You as well.
Fall town meeting lessons learned?
So what you have seen, what you can see is the evolution of sort of a lockstep approach. And two things around this. One's not really laid out here well, but I'll speak to that in a minute. But after each town meeting, I try to circulate out to board members, staff members, and others, because we can always do better. And I think that this fall town meeting, based upon some comments from the citizenry at large, some of our staff, was fairly well received. But I'm looking to see if there are things that you would like us to do differently as we approach the annual town meeting. So this year, for the fall town meeting, we were able to have the warrant ready a little bit earlier. We had it to the advisory committee all the way through the process. No, they didn't get the final until the last day that was allowed for, but they had the drafts all the way through. And a number of those articles, as you rightly pointed out, didn't change from the draft
Right.
till the final. So we're working within those constraints. We had the TV show where we took
Yep.
an hour with Steve Castle and kind of walked through those. That's normally a standard part of what we do. We were able to get, and I think we can improve, but we were able to get the advisory committee's recommendations into the report. So we had a single voter information guide that we handed out instead of different piles of paper. One of the things that I thought is, that when we put the motions up on the screen, if you want to continue that we put the recommendation of the select board and the advisory board advisory committee right up on the screen. That was, I think, just because it was the first time we'd done it this way. And then finally, on the day of the town meeting, I actually got some comments from town council, so I ended up throwing up on the screen some things that were a little bit different, because we were not gonna reproduce another 250 copies of the voter. I just couldn't bring myself to
Yeah.
throw all that work away. So there's a couple of takeaways that we've gotten, that we included, I think, in the memo, and we're looking to see from you all, And Doug, you were one of the ones that were kind of a proponent of making some changes for this fall town meeting. But we're looking to see what you all thought, lessons, things that you observed, things you'd like us to change, so we can start to keep those in mind as we move forward to the annual town meeting.
Yeah. Cam, you have something?
Yeah, I feel though, as, I'm not entirely sure what you guys had done last year for the fall town meeting, and for the annual town meeting, I know there was no presentation video put together beforehand, was there?
No.
That was something new.
This was the first time.
I think, as a community, the information that we bring to these annual town meetings is something that people should be aware of well in advance. I know we had the bylaw, not the bylaw, we had the zoning changes proposed, and there was information that wasn't given out. I think that's first and foremost. I think that was an excellent job with the television program. I think it might even have value add if you attended there as well, and during those discussions, the chairman of the board, and kind of get that face out in front of, what we're doing in this community. I think another thing is the way that the stage is set up currently, where, you're sitting down and it's town administrator, there's the town accountant, and then there's 5 select members, and then you have town council and the town clerk. I don't think town council needs to be up there. I think because they kind of just sit there and do nothing anyways, that they should probably be down where, the treasurer and everybody else is as a resource if need be. And that's kind of how we utilize it now, is that if, we have a question for Luann, we can say, hey, Luann, do you mind chiming in on this? They're all present there anyways. And the town accountant is another one that I think as a resource should be down on the floor. It kind of makes that, it cleans up the stage a little bit, gives it more, the selectmen of the town up there, and we give that more unified face. And I think another thing that I had thought too is when we were going for these, we read our motion and then we just pass it off. I think there should be, maybe if it is allowable for certain topics, or maybe all topics, that we have, I don't know, a quick, 30-second, 45-second, here's really why we're doing it, this is what it is, this is, how we're doing it, to kind of give that initial input. And that way, when the discussion opens up on the floor, it's not a target of attack from somebody who, was really vocal about it, who read it in the, paper or whatever, they read it and said, I'm going up against this, and they come out of there with this heat. You can kind of say, this is why we thought it was a good idea, this is why we're presenting it, and this is, open up that discussion on the floor, and then the selectmen just step away and let them discuss based off of that. And then the last point that I kind of had with the town meeting is that we should be, first and foremost, very prepared for all of these topics that we discuss. I think preparation, I think maybe if we found a day, maybe the Monday before, if we're meeting on Tuesdays, we sat down the Monday before, and just, even if it was like a retreat of some sort, we sat down and said, this is what we need to do, these are the facts we need to bring with us, any of the detail, any of the agendas, if we need resources or copies or anything like that, so we can kind of prep for this town meeting, so that when we're out there, because as selectmen, I think the biggest value add is that if you have a board of selectmen who are unified in front, have their facts together, and that we can answer any of these questions first and foremost. And then if we need to delegate out some, more specific technical questions that maybe Carter could answer, or maybe legal counsel could answer, if it's whatever. I think those are really the big takeaways I had for a town meeting, just to make us look more professional, and to make these things go faster, quicker, and better.
I agree.
So I do think the changes we made were positive this year. I think we did have a more professional appearance, and I think the meeting was run, pretty well. I do wonder though about without having town council, because there were 2 or 3 times that the moderator, the town clerk, and town council kind of huddled together. Again, it's not something you want to have in a public discussion, so if town council's down on the floor, they've now got to come up to the stage, so we're just creating more delay.
If I recall, though, those 2 town council comments, one was based off of the reading of the article, right? And then what was the other one for? I can't remember. Why was
Well, again, I don't know, they huddled and talked.
that was for the amendment. That's what it was, when they had proposed the amendment.
The one that I remember, because this is when town council came to me at 2 points during the meeting, and one of them had to do with the land acquisition, because when it was cut from the original Word document and pasted into the PowerPoint, somehow the A period
Right, was missing.
parentheses had gotten disjointed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
and
I mean-
I was able to look at the screen and say, it's right there. I mean, there's the mistake. It's pretty easy to see what happened.
Right.
Again, you know, it doesn't really matter what the topic of the discussion was, it's just the fact that they do occasionally need to have, you know, a discussion among themselves that, you know, isn't really a, you know, I can talk to you about it from the audience. So you're gonna have to delay the meeting to get them back up on the stage and that kind of thing. So I just don't know if
Okay.
having them in the audience would create, you know, more delays. Same with the accountant. Not so much at the fall town meeting, but at the annual town meeting when we're doing the budget, the accountant has to keep track of all of the votes. Because if we have a money article and it gets rejected, that's could potentially affect it. Or if somebody submits an amendment to change an amount, you know, that could affect
Well,
the
those are all
balance out of
recorded,
budget.
correct? Those are all recorded. She doesn't have to do them on the floor right then and there. She can.
No, they do, because if we need to leave the meeting with the balanced budget and an amendment passes that throws the budget out of whack,
calculated right
we've
there
got
on the
to
spot.
adjust it.
It has to be
So it
calculated
has
there
to
on
be
the spot.
calculated
Yeah,
right
we can't
there
leave.
as we go. So again, if the accountant is out in the audience, you know, there's no tables or anything out there. Plus, if we wanna have the discussion, or if Carter needs to refer to her, or vice versa, you know, being separated, I think is,
I will say that most moderators, if somebody says, makes a motion of, I move to amend the, motion to increase the department's, police department's budget by fill in a number. Normally the moderators I've dealt with have said, "Oh, sure, no problem. Where do you wanna cut it from?
Yep. Yeah, take it from somewhere.
Because we're walking out of here with a balanced budget. Now, frankly, legally, that's not required. The
Depends
town
on if you
meeting
have a
is not
strong speaker or not.
I am obligated to present a balanced budget. You are obligated to present a balanced budget. The voters are under no obligation to do any such thing.
Right.
But the moderators that I've worked with have made it clear that at the end of the day, the statute requires the budget be balanced, and therefore put the burden upon the person proposing increased spending to propose a means of reducing the budget elsewhere. So, yeah, Doug's right. The moderator needs to be able to say, here's a number. Particularly if somebody proposes an amendment. If it's a one-off, it's pretty straightforward. I propose to add. But if it's I propose to increase the budget by fill in the blank, and then has 6 or 7 numbers there, we do need to be able to quickly check the math.
right, so, but I mean, I was really pleased that it, you know, it did seem to run a lot better. I did like having the presentation on the screen with both our the advisory's recommendation right up there, so that everybody could read it up front, and the booklet, fantastic. Much better than shuffling all this paper that we've had in past. I mean, the booklet was right on, same with the TV program. I mean, it was really beneficial, I think.
In terms of the presentation piece, what Cameron's saying, I am very familiar with. Someone on the board makes the motion, the moderator gets the recommendation of the advisory committee, budget committee, whatever it's called, and then the moderator turns back to the maker of the motion to take a couple of minutes to explain what it is about. Would you like me to get the moderator into the next workshop? Because a couple of these things, the preparation, that's on you all. And I'll go to that one in a moment. The first two are really under the control of the moderator. Would you like me to ask him to invite your next, to attend your next
I-
workshop?
I do, because I think
Yeah.
that's a good,
I think
Yeah,
it's,
I mean,
I think
because
we should
especially
definitely
at
sit
this
down.
meeting, there's a couple of articles that if we had done that,
Mhm.
probably would have eliminated a lot of the discussion.
And I think the value add for us, you know, with Derek Hall as the town moderator, or any, because it's once annual, so yeah, I mean, his shoes can be replaced at the whim. So if we sit down with him and kind of establish really what the town moderator role should be, you know, kind of pushing forward, and have him in that discussion, what he thinks that the town moderator should be, and kind of look at what other communities do, and so that when we have these town meetings, I mean, he's up there to moderate. I mean, he's pretty much babysitting everybody here. He's babysitting us included. So, you know, we have to see what he wants to do and how comfortable he feels making these decisions, and kind of say, you know, this is what you're familiar with, you know, and more
Well,
of a strong
and in some
moderator.
communities, I've seen the moderator will come into a meeting with the select board just before going to town meeting, to kind of walk through all the articles and familiarize themselves and understand them a little bit better.
Mhm.
So we'll invite the moderator in for a discussion about that approach. With respect to the prep, we can do whatever your pleasure is. I mean, this year we kind of allocated the articles as at Doug's request, and then had people vet those, and the department heads were at the ready. I know y'all are busy. If it's more convenient that we have a formal sit-down, as opposed to, the week got away from me, the big hand came out, gave me a different task. I never had a chance to call fill in the blank. If a formalized meeting would help around that, then we can certainly build that into the schedule if you'd like.
I think it just helps us out and to ensure, because for a board, it's number one, if you know, the board voted four yes and one no, I mean, as the Board of Selectmen, we're still voting as a board, and we voted yes, so, you know, you have to have that unified front. You gotta
Right.
make sure that nobody feels uncomfortable with the articles they're presenting, and you gotta also make sure that everybody's well informed, so
Okay.
we kinda give you that last
And
shot to
we
get it.
can invite,
you know?
we can invite the moderator to that meeting
Yeah.
to walk through, and maybe you can take your formal votes then too. So let us take a look at how we can put that together in a way that's, makes the best use of your time, the department head's time, the moderators and such.
okay.
And we'll come back to you on that in the next few weeks, between now and when we present the budget to you.
You know, and how realistic is it to think that we can, you know, set a date, you know, a week ahead of town meeting that says, as of this date, nothing else is changing,
Mhm.
so that we know and everybody has a final document of, you know, this is what we're working with, we're not gonna change it again.
Mhm.
Is that realistic? I mean,
The perseveration factor is all in your hands. I'm not trying to be a complete smart arse, but, I think it's realistic. I do. We weren't that far off this, we were one day off for this fall town meeting. We weren't that far off, last year, which, given all of the changes that were in the budget,
yeah,
I don't think was all that bad. One of the things that we need to look at in the spring is some changes to the warrant article that speak to the timetable, because it says April 10. Well, you know, 30 days, frankly, would give us a little better float time. So I don't think it's all that unrealistic, Doug, I really don't. And this year, we're using the same template. I think we're gonna be in much better shape.
Good.
You know, fall town meeting, we missed it by one day. And I can't even recall what that was, reason that was. There was a reason for it. I don't remember if it was a holiday or
I have a question for you.
something that happened that threw us off at the last minute.
In regards to the advisory committees, they make their recommendation for or against. As they vote as a board to recommend an article, or they recommend against the article, or they make no recommendation, for them, are they still, do they, or should they, I should say, follow the same suit? So if one member feels that they are against the article, but the whole board, the whole committee says they are for the article, and there's a conflict, should they be speaking in a, I mean, this is an ideal world. I don't know how that works out, because I know as a board of selectmen, I would be appalled if that's, if 2 of us were against it and 3 of us were for it, we voted as a board to allow it, that you have that uniform standing ground. That's the way the boards work, we all
Well,
suck it up.
it's not uncommon for even a finance committee, a report like we put out, to have, the reason that the minority didn't support something.
Mhm.
But generally, no, it doesn't break down into, sort of a debate on the floor amongst, internally.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of time and is very counterproductive. So, if it's 4-1 and there's no great philosophical reason, I just can't support this. As opposed to why,
Yeah.
it's just, it's 4-1.
But it would be different if they had gotten, like for a selectman, it'd be different if you got off and stood up in the, on the microphone stand and made it as a resident rather
Yeah,
than select.
Yeah,
and
that's
sometimes
happened.
residents will say, well, why did the minority vote against that if it's 3-2?
Mhm.
Why did, who were those 2 members? So if there's something that's stated, and it's relatively short and crisp, often I'll just put it right in the report. Now, that can be challenging. The advisory committee withheld their recommendation on the number of items, and some of them, as the chair pointed out, they'd actually had for the full 4 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever. But when there is a distinctive reason as to why the minority has voted against something, we can put it right in the report, if you'd like.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've only got so much real estate on a slide, though, on the screen.
There's only so much real estate on the slide, and it's not the place for tub thumping by, and this member, and this member, and this member. But if there is some sort of deep philosophical divide that you can boil down to a sentence or 2, why not put it in there?
Yeah,
If you'd like.
yeah.
It's not, that's not the place for editorializing. Any editorializing really is up in the summary. So we're going to, I want to make sure I understand before we walk away from this. We're gonna ask the moderator to come into one of your workshops between now and town meeting.
Hopefully sooner
To
than
talk, yep,
later.
yep, to talk about the town meeting in general. And we'll refer him to this discussion
Good.
once we get the video link. And we're going to work into the timeline, a session for you to prep, whether it's in a workshop or however we get that done.
Right.
With the department head, so it's being done collectively, so no one kind of last minute.
And especially with the elections, if
Sure.
for whatever reason the elections change, we can kind of make sure that the
No,
new guy
right.
is
Right,
with
yeah,
it.
if that does happen, you're right, absolutely, that would then be a good,
Well, that won't happen for this town meeting.
No.
But the
Right.
letter did go off to Phillipston, and hopefully after the first of the year, have a chance
Some
to meet
dialogue
with
with
them.
them.
And have that discussion,
Yep.
because there's multiple ways to meet your objectives depending upon how agreeable.
Right.
And what their objectives are as well. And that's my takeaways from that section then. And hitting target dates.
Yep.
Proposing target dates, we're very comfortable that we can hit. And the board recognizing the importance of hitting those target
Right.
dates. Okay,
That's good.
we can do that.
and then, we'd have to go to print, or could go to print then as soon as they get done with that pre-town meeting,
Mhm.
which is, the week prior to the
It would be helpful if they had it earlier.
It would, like at least a week earlier would be good.
I mean, if we've got the thing, if we're evolving a system where we've invited them to the February, whatever it is this year, 26th
Yeah.
presentation. They've been invited to the 3 town meetings. We've got the target date of April 10. They should be able to have their public hearing and take their votes much earlier than 1 week before.
But doesn't the bylaw say it's the week before?
I don't know.
I think the bylaw specifies that it's the week before. So, you know, it's another potential bylaw change we should maybe
Yeah.
make.
Yeah,
But we could hit it for this year.
Yeah.
Because if we don't get their comments until, are you able to?
it's the Wednesday before.
If we're not able to get those comments, but 6 days or something before the meeting,
Mhm.
we then have to finish the document, get it into production, try to have it out for people, you know, on the counters, on the web, and such.
Right.
That's a very tight timeline
Yep.
for us to include their comments, which I think everyone agreed was a good improvement.
Mhm.
Are you able to find?
Kind of my big thing is communication, like I've talked to you before about, is we need to maintain the communication factor, because that's gonna be the, going forward as far as, you know, dealing with the advisory committee and letting them have the information that they need. They've had the information, the changes were minimal, like I talked to you about earlier. You know, and they didn't get the finished draft until that Wednesday, which I understand, but the changes that were made, none of the changes really were made for the entire document. So if they had questions prior to their pre-town meeting, all those questions should have been asked and answered way before that pre-town meeting. And why that didn't happen, huh?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
And why that didn't happen, that's kind of concerning for me, because I look at the pre-town meeting where, you know, if folks want to come in and hear what the issues are at hand and what warrants are out there, what articles are out there, you know, that's, the people can ask questions, and they should have some of their answers already in play, as they're voting on the articles. Am I reading into this too much, or I mean, is it my target?
Not at all, and, you know, so just backing up, a number of those articles, the foundation for them was laid last, I believe, April,
Mhm.
when we presented the FY 13, 14, 15, 16 audit finding.
Mhm.
Here's the numbers, here's how we're gonna work our way out of this thing. Then we had the follow-up meeting with DOR, and we circulated the memo on that. Then we had the meeting with DOR. You know, so there were a number of articles in there that were, to me, well-known for months.
Right.
And then we did that when we presented it. So I can't speak to that. And the pre-town meeting, there was no presentation article by article for questions by the public. It was straight, well, let's go to this one, and then there was discussion. It's not a format I'm familiar with. 'Cause normally,
That's,
in the public hearing, I've seen the budget committee, the finance committee, whatever, you know, go through Article 1, is this, any questions from the public, where are we, let's vote.
right.
Right, I mean,
That's what I was,
in
that's what I was under the
that's
impression of
exactly-
as well.
yeah.
But that's,
That's
wasn't
under
what I,
their
s-
control.
that's not what I saw. And that's what I was, and again, I'm not beating the advisory committee up, and, I mean, please don't get me the wrong way, I'm really not. I think they're doing a great job for what they do and what they have to do. But I think they might need to be informed as far as the responsibility and roles as well, just so we're all on the same page, we're all on the same team, where we have the same objectives that need to be met, and making sure that this community stays intact, financially, economically, moving forward.
So with respect to Doug's question.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna read the entire section.
Please.
It's a dozen lines. But a public hearing shall be held upon all such articles unless a public hearing by some other tribunal is required by law, and in the notice of such hearing shall be given by inserting in the local newspaper. There
No
is no
timeline.
requirement.
Okay, good.
Okay,
So that's
Good.
within their control.
all right, good.
Obviously, it needs to be realistic. You gotta have the warrant as
right.
voted by this board.
Right.
So, but if, again, once we give them the completed warrant, and they have a couple of weeks to debate it, ask questions, come back to us even perhaps, then they ought to be able to have their
Right.
pre-town meeting, you know.
Well, my hope is that by
Weeks.
involving them in the joint meetings,
Mhm.
the presentations, giving them a seat at the table, literally. Have to set up a couple extra tables, but giving them a seat. They're able to ask those questions and pose those questions, and this body is able to make whatever adjustments it feels warranted
Right.
based upon the information that's supplied in response to
Sounds
the
good.
thought process, supplied in response to those.
Good.
And then they're down to thumbs up, thumbs down,
Mhm.
basically.
Okay.
And what are the alternatives? I mean, if there's a suggestion to cut revenues or something, the fair question is then what's the alternative?
Okay.
Right,
good.
but again, those questions, like you said, should be asked at our joint meetings, not after the fact.
Right, or not at a,
Key takeaway is, I mean, if you're ever in a position where you can get some of your work done earlier, in an ideal world, you would get that done earlier and have enough time to ask questions that you need to. I mean, I even if you handed me a document as I was sitting on the advisory committee that was bound to be changed, I would still make the inquiry as to what it is that I would initially have a question on. I think there was some about the accounting that was going on about these transfers, and they had waited until the last second. And the thing is that nobody on that board had acted on their own capacity to say, you know, I'm kind of curious about this, let me reach out to Carter or Kelly or the Board of
well,
Selectmen.
we'll go back. I mean, they
Yeah.
didn't wait till the last second. They waited till the fall town meeting to bring it up on the floor. It wasn't like they brought those questions to the town administrator, to the Board of Selectmen office, or to Kelly. They had it for almost 4 weeks, I'll say 4 weeks, but none of those questions were even brought forward, except to the special, or the pre-town meeting, which, you know, I did sit in the back, and I was here just as a spectator. I wanted to see how things went on, and not that it was a mistake for me to be here. I thought it was good that I was here. But then they were asking me questions, and that's really not the appropriate time or space at that point to be asking questions at that point. You should already have the answers to the questions that you already have going into a pre-town meeting, because the pre-town meetings is for the advisory committee, don't get me wrong, for their votes up and down, but it's also for the people to ask them questions as well before coming to the fall or annual town meeting. Am I on track with that?
Absolutely, and I'm hopeful that with the, if we can continue to improve the process,
Good.
improve communications, I'm hopeful that we can continue to see a better meeting for the
Good.
citizenry to attend.
And I think that's gonna be huge, because obviously we need to try to get as many people there as we can. I was a little disappointed in the amount of citizens that actually showed up, since we did move it from the Saturday to the Tuesday, and yet we still had 28 people show up or something along those lines, which was, you know, out of the 8,000 plus folks here, just over 5,000 voting people in town, you know, 28 decided to show up, which was great. I think we should be able to get more people than 28.
Yeah. Special towns, though, have typically been low attendance.
No, I understand.
Historically.
I looked at the numbers,
Yeah,
but 28 was pretty much the lowest one I saw
yeah.
in the last few years back. So somehow we have to spark that interest again and let the people know that this town is your town. It's not ours, it's yours.
Yep.
You know, you elect us to help us and help you get to the
You got a
process.
leash law, put a leash law on every fall town meeting, they'll all show up. It's the most amazing thing. If you got something down there about dogs or garbage, it's amazing,
Yeah, right.
the turnout that you get.
I'm just Tricks. I don't know who comes up with this. All right, so all right, any other questions with that? We're just moving on to proposed amendments to the financial management policies.
So this one's fairly straightforward.
Yep.
When we adopted the financial policies, and frankly, it should have been there all along, and often I have them and I simply forgot. The UMass folks left it out. It's been pointed out that there are some prior financial management policies. I'm not sure I necessarily agree that they were formal policies. I think in some cases, they may have been adopted as goals, particularly with respect, I think, Doug, you pointed out to funding stabilization accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, well, geez, this is in conflict with that, and rather than continuing to have that discussion,
Good catch.
and rather than perhaps forgetting something, saying this takes precedence over that one. The simplest thing is a singular supremacy clause, which basically says this document, now as amended, takes supremacy over anything adopted prior to this date.
That wasn't put in the front?
No, it wasn't. It was just an oversight.
I thought, okay.
And so I'd like to put that, something along these lines in there to resolve those discussions.
Yep.
Which take some time, that frankly can be better spent on other things.
No, I agree. So do you agree?
Yeah, I guess the exception would be if it's a bylaw.
Of course.
I mean, you can't make a policy supersede a bylaw.
Nope.
Right, but
Or
they,
the
they're-
statute.
they only take supremacy over any policy adopted or practice followed. So a bylaw would be, oh, sorry about that one.
Deeply offended.
There's just something, I don't know which one of us is getting that wrong. One of us is getting it wrong.
Cameron 40.
I
So
saw
the bylaws, Doug, would remain supreme.
Yeah, okay.
I think he was trying to write something else.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't discuss that right now.
Way to go. Deeply offended.
Right at any point on camera.
But that was a good question, Doug. Anything else? Obviously,
Yep.
you know, no policy is gonna take precedence over a bylaw and or the state statute or federal statute, so.
So we'll take a second look at this to make
Yep.
sure Doug's point is covered adequately. But what I'm hearing is that this amendment is ripe for action at your next business
Yes.
meeting.
Please. Unless anybody has any objections, Kim?
No, I have 0.
Doug, do you have any objections?
No, I
Okay.
don't.
It just makes sense.
Mhm.
Makes sense.
May I just follow up on that? For the last meeting, we were asked to prepare sample motions, which we did, not uncommon with some other boards I've worked with. And then each week, somebody, it's rotation. It starts here and it works down there. Was that, I know Doug, you weren't there. I don't know if you had a chance to see the meeting at all.
I've not watched it yet.
Yeah, I think that
Was
worked out
that
well.
helpful? Do you want us to do that for another meeting and
I-
see how that?
It was
if
probably
that
the
works.
most helpful that I've had. Because typically, Ms. Tilly Brooks, she's great. She would typically do a large percentage of the motions because she had the information in front of her. But yeah, if we can prep those motions ahead of time, for one or two of the members, that would be great.
Sure, okay.
I don't think it needs to go in per session. I think, whoever wants to,
Okay.
between Cameron and Doug and Julie, that would be great.
Well, we'll take another, I don't think we have a lot coming up on the 11th. We'll take another crack at it
Mhm.
and see if you like this, and we'll, then ask you again.
I think it might be helpful if you just, if it's a motion for, just list all the motions, what they should be, and then, if for or if against, motion for, motion against, and then whatever it is,
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Excellence.
So on the next one, as you know, I had in the budget, some short money for recognition of volunteers and employees. Also, while we did give out some merit and equity raises, those weren't given out until October 1.
Mhm.
So we've got a few dollars left there. And I asked Eric to look at, and then I'll ask you to chime in with the lapel pin issue.
Mhm.
I asked Eric to take a look at some things that we could do to recognize our employees above and beyond, a sit-down of, you did a nice job this year, and here's what we can give you.
Right.
But something that's just a little bit more special, a little bit more recognition. We need to add the volunteer piece in at some point.
Mhm.
And then weave item 8 into it as well. So with your permission, I'll have Eric walk through what he pulled together and has for your consideration.
Great. Yes, Eric.
Well, thanks for having me.
No, thanks for being here.
So after doing research in other communities across the country, different size communities as well, a lot of them had employee recognition programs, and there was 3 categories that I thought Templeton should explore. First one is communications, and this would go to someone who keeps the website up to date, someone that assists in transparency and helps communicate with the public at large, and does so on a regular basis, and does so at the highest level. The second one is efficiency. This could be safety might come to mind, or workflow, bringing new ideas to the table as far as improving operations internally. And then the third one is pinnacle of excellence. This is someone who went above and beyond what their job description requires. Someone learned a new skill, learned a new trade, totally went outside their comfort zone just to help the town improve and tackle big projects outside their department. These employees can be nominated by citizens, board members, department heads, fellow colleagues, and full and part-time employees are eligible as well. And as far as rewards for this, after looking at several communities, most of them had a small stipend, and what I thought was really something, and after talking with the staff, they would like a letter of recognition from the town administrator, recognizing their performance, and a personal letter that could be filed away in their personnel file. This would be presented at an employee recognition luncheon, and the expenses for the awards and for the luncheon would come out of the 120-5110 employee support budget. And that's all I have for you guys. You all have any questions?
I do, Doug, go ahead.
So you'd be recommending that we have 3
Yes.
awards?
Mm-hmm. Yep, 3 separate ones.
Assuming someone was
Nominated.
nominated in each category.
Yeah.
And what they were nominated for was deemed worthy.
Mm-hmm.
This is really meant to be, really going really above and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And in the policy as well, if there was not anyone that was nominated for an award, or we did not feel like someone was worthy of it, even though there was a nomination submitted, the administrator has a right to withhold the award and present it next year.
Okay. I think it's a great idea. I think nominating, having, taking care of your staff is really key. I mean, taking care of the people that work here. I mean, you get good, happy employees, they're gonna work harder and better for you. And I think this is just another, etch in the glass, so to speak, as far as making things better in the workforce, in the workflow. But like I did talk to you, not that I wanna go into the lapel pin policy, but what I'd like to do is, I mean, this is something that we can probably integrate into one policy. The awards as well as the lapel pin, we could probably potentially, I mean, unless there's a specific, because even the lapel pin is, it could be utilized as an award as well, potentially to not just employees, but, if, we had a guest speaker from the State House come in, they wanted to do a presentation for the staff. You could, the town administrator will have the authority to, as a token of our appreciation, give them one of our lapel pins as a token, so we can, maybe follow up, maybe you and I can
Yeah.
work together to, maybe pinpoint this a little bit better, maybe. I mean, I have seen this in other policies where, other things were involved in employment recognition as well as, have you seen it as well, Carter?
Yeah, there's 2 pieces on the employee recognition, and on the volunteer recognition. One is, we don't have anything in there, for 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20.
Right.
I'm not sure that we're frankly
We're not there yet, I
that
don't think.
sophistication, and if you forget somebody, it's worse than not having had an
Right.
award for the, you call in the employees who've given 5 years and you give them a certificate, and then you forget somebody. So all the goodwill that you built up
Goes for nothing.
goes for nothing.
Right.
And also, those recognition programs do tend to cost a few more dollars.
Right.
Because you give them whatever, at 10 and 15 and 20 and 25. And frankly, the state of our records, we're not there at this point.
Mhm.
So that's something that we need to, sort of this is the service really above and beyond.
Mhm.
The other piece is the length of service, tenure of
Mhm.
service, that you'll need to think about at some point. And then the volunteer piece, we really don't have a good method. We have the lapel pins to some extent, but again, you're not gonna give every year, a lapel pin to every
Right,
town
right.
volunteer.
Right.
Whether we do burgers and hot dogs and you guys cook it and serve them, or, we need some ideas
Mhm.
that we can do within a reasonable budget, that you folks, think can be successfully carried out every year, that a good measure of our volunteers would feel, yeah, that's a nice thank you for what I do for the town. So we really need some ideas on the volunteer side
Mm.
of it as well.
And this is doing like a volunteer, like once a year. I have like almost not a volunteer day, but like a day that we pick that's gonna be the annual day.
I've seen different communities do different things, in some communities truly, the select board have just cooked up hamburgers and hot dogs, and they come in on a Saturday and they do that, a Friday, and they do that for the employees. A different day, they've done it for the volunteers. In some communities, they're all invited to a luncheon and they get a couple of certificates from local restaurants. Can't
Yes,
get them
John's not
donated in this state, because that would be no, but they raffle them off, just something that says to the volunteers formally from the board, there's an event, we hope you'll join us, because we want to take advantage of that opportunity to say thank you to what you do for the
No,
community.
that makes a ton of sense. I mean, especially for volunteers that are doing it for almost no thanks. And, well, I shouldn't say no thanks, but no pay, obviously, but,
Well, and in some cases, no thanks. Zoning Board of Appeals, Concom, sometimes they go out and they do their job, and, they may not be getting thanks. They may be
No.
getting very much the opposite.
Very much so.
I can tell you, even in this capacity, I don't receive a stipend, I don't
Yep.
receive any cash, no kickbacks, none of that stuff, so for me, I'm doing this, I'm dedicating my time, which I could use somewhere else, making money. And at the end of the day, we just wanna be recognized for what we do and the time we dedicate, and I think that, to do that to volunteers of the town of Templeton, even if it's for rec league baseball, or whether it, you can incorporate almost
All those coaches.
half the community in
Yeah.
this, right? And you could establish, I'm sure some way, somehow, we could come up with, maybe you can go down to the Otter River Sportsman's Club, or something like
Yeah.
that nature, and just grilling it up.
And-
Because
and
half
we-
the people that go
right.
there are all volunteers of
They
the
are.
town as well, so.
And we need some ideas
Yeah.
from you all of what you think. And many of you served before on the board. Doug was working on the senior center, and John, you were involved in things. Diane was, you remember what it was like,
Yeah.
So what is it that, if the town had done to say thank you, might have been well received? We don't have a big budget for it. I think I've only got $500 in the budget for it. But we'd really like to collect your ideas.
Well,
on
to be
that.
honest with you, Mr. Tenzini, I think, anything, anything. Anything
we do.
would have been great, anything. Because obviously, really nothing, other than the staff, the directorates, saying thank you for coming, helping us with the senior center. I went over a couple times and helped them over there, and, over in this building with the veterans. It was tedious work, but if it wasn't for the, we knew what we were doing it for. We were doing it for, our citizens. But if they did anything, cookout, that would be phenomenal.
Right, yeah, I
That
think
would
if we
go
could do,
miles. I know Luann Godlever and Tom, they're great. They always do a little cookout thing for the staff in the summertime at no cost to the staff. And that goes leap years to the full-time staff that work here, which is fantastic. And my hat goes off to the Roya family. I think that's great that he does that. But if we did anything,
If you guys want me to explore, I can go around and see, I don't know how many, I'll probably get a staff report, how many volunteers we have on list, and, I mean, if,
There's quite a few.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm almost certain that we could get something as a community to have somebody, you know, donate time, donate space, donate whatever it may be, you know, and hold some sort of barbecue or some sort of, you know, get together for volunteers, town of the Templeton, whatever it may be, and just do recognition for dedication and service to Templeton.
And I think
And I
as
can
we
bring
have
it
a lot
close
of,
for that.
you know, with the Better Business Bureau from Gardner and using the business business is here, you know, throwing some things out to them as well. I think that might be a good idea to work with local business, because I know they could probably donate some stuff potentially, or give some ideas on how to potentially do that. This is a farming community, so there is a lot of farms here too, so we do have a lot of,
We have to be very careful about 268A.
I understand, I understand,
The ability,
268A
the state ethics.
state ethics.
for,
Right, the town can't solicit donations.
We can't
Soliciting
solicit,
donations.
That's why
we
there's
can't.
friends organizations.
right.
yes.
Or the Friends of the Veteran Services, or those folks that are, you know, 501c3 organizations. We specifically can't go out and do that, but other organizations can, you know, not so much on our behalf, but they can.
Like my nonprofit.
Right, right. But yeah, I think anything, you know, I think a cookout's a good idea. I mean, even if we drafted up certificates and had like a certificate day.
I don't know, I think the certificate thing is just, you know, to me, you know, yep, okay, thanks, and
Yeah.
it goes in the trash can when I get home. You know, I mean, I don't want 50 certificates hanging on my wall, you
And
know?
I'll explore it,
yeah.
and then,
So-
we can reconvene at another workshop
Okay.
with that topic and discussion, and,
Okay.
and we'll see what I can come
Sounds
up with
good.
for a reasonable cost.
And the certificate, you know, I worked in one community and we did them all, and before they went to hand them out, you know, they started going through and said, oh, no, that person left. You know, oh, well, this person just signed up. When you start to get to that level of detail, it just becomes a nightmare
Yeah, I think
of
just as,
logistics, and our record keeping is not that good.
no.
Okay,
So I can see where we're leaning.
I had
So-
a couple, oh, go ahead.
no, please.
I had one comment.
Eric, yeah.
When I got my Eagle Scout award, I got a letter from the congressman,
Mhm.
but I think here, it'd be much more personal if someone donated their time to a big project, or if there's a particular volunteer that's been working really hard, if they got a letter,
Mhm.
a lapel pin, I think that'd mean a lot more than coming from someone that works in Washington.
Mhm.
I think more of small town
Right.
feel if 5 people would sign something and say, hey, we recognize you guys working on this particular project. So-and-so has recognized you as well that has worked there,
Mhm.
and I think they really appreciate that.
And we have done proclamations in the past.
Mhm.
We did one for Sergeant Hall with the jail cell and his attributes. Talk about Eagle Scout project. We do have 3 Eagle Scouts coming up this year.
Mhm.
Most of their projects, 2 of the projects are actually LMAO's working with them. So they're town-sponsored potential projects. One is the fence in Otter River, where the material's being donated and obviously supervised by Mr. Mayo. But the Eagle Scout is actually developing the project and the plan and development of that, as you all know that how that packet goes. So I mean, there are 3 coming up, which is great, and we haven't had one in about 2 or 3 years. And this year we have 3. You know, Troop 27, Templeton, Eagle Scouts coming up, and then in the next 2 years, we probably have another 3 or 4 more coming in, so it's a really proactive troop.
Mhm.
But you're right, I think coming from the local level is a lot better than, you know, it's like when I retired from the service, I got a nice letter from the president. I don't think it was signed by him. I mean, it looked like a little stampy thing, but it was a nice gesture. Thanks for your service. But I think I liked the one more that was done by the governor. Was really nice. His was really nice. But yeah, but the more local level it is, the better it
You know,
feels.
It's the people, I mean, you know, like Ann Goby especially, you know, I mean, she's in town occasionally, she knows
Mhm.
what's going on, she knows a lot of the volunteers, you know, so
Yeah.
she can recognize, you know, or.
Like
the
when she was
people-
here.
Right, and the people who, you know, are being recognized, understand that, yeah, she really knows what's going on, it's not, you know, some bureaucrat sitting back there that just rubber stamped a letter somebody
Right.
put in front of them and has
Yeah.
no clue who I
None.
am, yeah,
None.
so,
No, but good
I do
point.
agree with that, yeah.
Good point. All right, let's.
So we'll work on continuing to flesh this out then, weaving some of the lapel pin information into it.
Yep.
And await for for the next workshop, some further conversation on the volunteer
Right.
recognition side of things.
And obviously the lapel thing, pin, one, I just
Yep,
went pretty fast with this, so I mean, I was just,
We'll weave it together in
okay.
some
That
fashion.
just makes it more
I
sense.
mean, I don't know if they really should be weaved together. I mean, you know,
Keep them
doing
separate,
employee
yep.
recognition is really completely separate than the lapel pin that we're gonna give
Okay.
to anybody and their brother,
Mhm.
you know, in my opinion.
Well, it's not everything that brother.
Well, yes, I agree. Anybody who's worked for the
Right,
town.
town employees,
Or an
board
employee or a
members.
volunteer,
Then
because a
that-
volunteer's not gonna be eligible for the recognition program. You know, so there really are two separate things, in my opinion.
So it's more mini key to the city, kind of in your mind then? The lapel pin,
Mm-hmm, yeah,
visiting dignitaries, things
yeah.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Is that
yeah,
what you were thinking?
it was.
Because there's a
Many
lot of
keys
people
to
that'll
the
be
city, I
eligible
like
for the
that.
pin.
Yeah, it's
Aren't
kind of
eligible
similar,
for the
that's
program.
similar, because Gardner does the same thing.
They give out many keys to the city?
No, lapel pins, you goofball.
Let me get over
Okay.
that. I want to.
I want a mini key,
And we'll take a squint at it and prep it for a formal vote.
and I'll work some more on mine
Perhaps
as
as
well.
early, please, perhaps as early as a Monday.
Okay,
Have
sounds
you ever
good.
actually worked for a community where they hand out a key to the city or the
I
town?
have.
I've,
And what, is that just ceremonial?
It's ornamental.
I've-
It's ceremonial, yeah.
You can't just like pull it out and be
No.
like, I have a key to the city?
no, I've actually,
Only teasing.
well, I've actually received one.
Have you?
I have, I received the key to the city of Medford.
Really?
I did, yep, many moons ago,
You know the gentleman over there, he was for Veterans Affairs, right? Is that he's the commissioner now for,
Ooh, in
Veteran-
Medford?
yeah.
No, that was up, he's up in, that was the Lowell
Oh, okay.
VSO. No, the Secretary of Veteran Services, no, this different guy. No, the Mayor of Medford, I did a holiday demonstration. I had, I was a recruiter at the time, and I had Santa Claus rappel off of the City Hall roof.
Interesting.
And it worked out very well. And it was a big presentation. A couple of days later, there was a
He
big
couldn't have
presentation.
just used the chimney?
No, they usually have them ride around the fire truck, apparently. And so the fire truck came, and all the kids were out there looking for the Santa Claus to get out of the fire truck, and he wasn't there, and off he jumps the roof, and he rappels down, and the mayor thought that was the best thing next to sliced bread, and next thing you know, he gave me a nice big certificate with the big steel stamp and the key to the city. It was really quite amazing. But anyways, but it was a huge, nice certificate. It was really pretty, really nice. But anyways, moving on. Proposed information on the local option meals tax.
I'm gonna ask Eric to take it from the top.
You can't top that, can you?
Yeah, quite a transition. Propelling off a roof to local option meal tax.
Yeah, exactly. All right, give me some information.
All right, so the local options meals tax, this was enacted first in 2009,
Mhm.
and it assesses 0.75% to every dollar spent on local meals. UMass sent out a study just this afternoon, so this number in the fourth paragraph down, it's pretty close, but it's not as accurate as what we got this afternoon.
Which one, the 40,127, or the 60%?
The 60% and 209, so
Okay.
that's updated to almost 2/3.
Okay.
And 228 communities have adopted it.
228, wow, okay.
And below that is a chart for some of our comparison communities and what they've received in revenue. And this is from the fiscal year 17 Division of Local Services actuals.
And all these, obviously, these towns all have the meals tax, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So Athol, theirs was, if you want to flip to the second page.
Right there, John.
Oh, I don't have my glasses on. Thank you for
Is that it?
pointing that out, yeah.
On the second page, it has the actual numbers. And
You can fill in the rest.
Athol, they received just over 111,000, and then Orange, they received just over 51,000 in revenue,
Mhm.
and Winchendon just over 80,000 in revenue.
Okay.
And the per capita revenue totals are right next to the annual totals. In Templeton, this is from the Division of Local Services, their estimated revenues, what we would get for
Mhm.
calendar year 2016, which is, and I do want to emphasize it's calendar year, so it's January 2016 to December. Trying to get fiscal year 17, but they had a data merge,
Okay.
and they lost a couple of months, so I figured calendar year was most accurate and most recent. A lot of the other communities, they would use the revenue to apply towards their either capital improvements, reserve funds, or economic development. I'm proposing that we use it towards our capital improvements. And you guys probably know the situation, I know Doug knows because he's on the capital planning committee, of our vehicles and capital needs that the town has. I think this would help address some of them. And I suggest going forward, we should host informational sessions for local restaurant owners and business owners in the area to field their questions first and give them more personalized attention. And then afterwards, we could open it up to the public, have another informational session to answer questions at large for everyone.
No, I think that's a good idea. I think that's gonna be, key to get the information out, get the feel and the feedback back from, the patrons that are out there, the restaurant owners, and then open it up to the public at large, once we get all the information from them.
What we would do, Eric has prepared a draft flyer. Actually, you're gonna see two flyers. The first was the meals tax flyer, and it gives a little bit of general information.
Yep.
Shows, so if you go across the street to Cumbies to get your coffee today, it's $1.05. With the local option meals tax, it's $1.06. If you, some folks go out to dinner, they get,
Look at this.
hamburg, fries, sodas, it's
Or this,
like 15 cents.
right.
Two people go out and $50, it's 35 cents. So we want to get this out there. We are suggesting, from our perspective, that we would dedicate it towards a capital program, so that the capital program slowly could evolve such that we would take the tax levy we had in the budget this year, put that over in the lockbox,
Right.
if you will. Take the estimated receipts of the meals tax, if you decided to put that on the warrant article, slide that over there. Whatever the debt comes down, the non-excluded debt, and it comes down a little bit each year, slide that difference over there. And then, if we have some surplus in the overlay. I want to try to get to where we have a true capital plan every year. It's not going to be big in the early years, but maybe over time, if we can begin to view capital program here and general fund budget here, we can start to address those needs
Right.
by building on this.
We have a lot of needs.
Now, the other thing about this is that there's no, so here's what we have to do to collect it. Does a town meeting vote to adopt it? Within 3 days, the town clerk has to send a letter to the state telling them we've adopted it. The state sends a letter to all the local restaurateurs, everybody that they have a record of, pays the meals tax, and says, you gotta start collecting this in the first quarter following like 30 days, so it'd be July 1.
Right.
They then pay it to the state. The state calculates what we're owed. Every 3 months, they mail us a check. Or an electronic funds transfer. That's it,
But it's a quarterly thing.
quarterly. So after we notify them that we're gonna collect it, the only work we have to do is to create a new account number and track those 4 payments a year. There is no local effort involved whatsoever.
Oh, okay, that makes it a little bit more
Yep.
tangible.
So, what we want to do is get out there with these informational meetings, if this is agreeable to you, and this would get kicked off with this tax flyer, which just says, we're going to be having some informational meetings, watch out for those to be scheduled.
Would we send this to our local restaurant?
Yeah, Lori, we'd support it through Lori, because she's got the mailing list for everyone.
Right.
We would, there's about 50 plus or minus restaurateurs that are licensed and that she inspects. They would get a little bit more, they'd get a cover letter and this at the time it's going into the census flyer. because they may not live in town, they may not get the census flyer. And we want them to get a little bit more personal attention.
I think it might be a value add too to get to the restaurant owners as well. I mean, we have, maybe 20, if that, restaurants in Temple that serve food, to send them out, because this isn't imposed on any of the bars or any service, this is just on
If you have to
restaurant.
pay if you have to pay the meals tax.
Okay, this is out.
So if you're a bar and all you do is microwave chicken wings,
Mhm.
but you serve those, and you have to pay the meals tax on that, you will have to collect
So
that.
we're still around the ballpark 20, but I think it might be a value add if we took the time, mailed out to them directly,
Yep.
invited them into a discussion to sit down with us and throw Eric to the wolves so that he can defend this and have that go through. I think that would be, because first and foremost, I think it's important that we nail that down, that they're not gonna be hurt, they're not gonna be burdened by this,
Right.
and I think it'd be best to get in front of the mania that comes, or the hysteria that comes with, oh God, there's a change, sales tax, people hear the word tax, and now restaurants are getting taxed, we don't like business, and,
They're gonna adjust their computer programs to charge 7%.
yeah, and I understand
Some of
that.
them are sophisticated, in other communities, they charge, the state tax and local tax, they show it separate. Most of the restaurateurs in this area, I think, are just gonna adjust it. Meals tax, 7%. They're gonna send it to the state. That's all that's gonna happen. And
they are
one
also
of the
the
interesting,
First and foremost as well, that, I mean, these are the people that are gonna be getting the conversation too, when somebody,
yeah,
that if you can inform these people, the earlier you can inform these people what's going on with
and
this.
Lori started
better.
today on what's gonna be the best day of the week, time.
Good.
Because, do we try to do it in the morning? Do we try to do one in the morning? Because a lot of these folks are gonna be small mom and pops, who, if they come to an informational session, are gonna have to take an hour away from their business to do that. So we wanna try to make this as
You could,
convenient
I
as
mean,
possible.
even you, if it was applicable, you could even just have them sit down with you and come in, early morning, mid-afternoon, whatever it may be, and just say, hey, come on in, and, if you have any questions or whatever, come sit down with Carter Terenzini. Actually, no, we're throwing you to the wolves.
Yeah,
so-
we're throwing him to the wolves on this one.
Yeah, that's why you need a management
In
fellow, right? You
in
need
the
a fall
9
guy.
years, well, this is frankly, this is real world, sometimes he'll say something to me and I'm like, where in the bloody blazes did you learn? Well, they taught me that in school. They don't do that in the real world, Eric. No, this has been I think this has been a good experience. I think you did a good job with the memo and the
Yeah, I'm
research.
impressed.
And one of the things that, we've found is that no community has repealed it.
Yeah, once they've
Yep.
had it.
Once it was adopted and in place, no one has repealed it.
How long, do you know what the foundation, and through your research, do you know when this was actually, town started using this?
2009.
That was the first ever community to use it?
Yeah.
2009.
And then to go on Carter's point, as far as no one repealing it, it has to be enacted for 3 years, and then you have to repeal it at a town meeting.
Okay.
And at that point, it's already in your budget, and it'd be such a major cut, and no one's there to try and
Right.
repeal it.
Right, but town meeting has to approve it also.
Yes,
Yes.
town meeting has to adopt,
Yeah.
town meeting has to repeal.
I mean,
And
even
our-
with this though, this isn't impacting citizens at all. I mean, to get this number, if you were to spend $100 more a year based off of this tax, you'd have to spend $10,000 annually
On outside food.
on
Yeah.
food, to spend $100 per family.
Right.
Well, actually, and
Yeah,
it's $75,
Yeah.
because it's .75.
There you go.
Oh, right,
So,
right.
so you're even more, so 12,500 you'd have to spend, which is an absurd
Annually.
amount.
Yeah,
And
On
that-
fast food.
Yeah.
right.
It doesn't deter
That'd be
business,
huge.
it doesn't deter citizens from consumption, and you know what, and it's not taxing just citizens, this is anybody who comes into Templeton,
Right.
so. I don't see the harm in this, I think this is an excellent idea.
Yeah. So are Athol and Winchton our only bordering towns that have it?
Yes, I believe. Eric, do you have that spreadsheet that came in from UMass today? Gardner did not.
Yeah, I know Gardner doesn't.
Not yet.
Phillipston would not, because they only have one restaurant in town.
Phillipston did
And
not.
they're a big name in
Mhm.
Phillipston, so.
And Hubbardston.
What about Hubbardston, Eric? It's alphabetical, so.
Is there a restaurant in Hubbardston?
Yeah,
Well, it's not just restaurants. It
Airport.
can be a gas station that sells prepackaged sandwiches. It's all, one of the things that drives Athol's numbers so high is the prepared food in the cafe at the
Hospital?
Market Basket.
Oh, Market, really?
Mm.
Hubbardston does not.
Yeah.
What was the other community?
So basically, it's Athol and Winchton.
Gardner and Phillipston, but we know they don't.
So if you're amenable to us beginning this conversation in the community, it would kick off with a flyer that's gonna look suspiciously very much like this. And before these actually go out in the census, they would go to the individual restaurateurs with a more personalized letter for them.
Mhm.
On the back of that, before we leave this, would be this flyer that informs our residents and taxpayers of the ability to use that Winchendon transfer station, so we can get this information out to the community as well. It's not a questionnaire. I know that we had talked about maybe including something. And initially, we thought about, kind of including something survey-wise, Doug, and then we thought, no, let's just make this a informational process and not be asking people their opinions yet before we have a chance to make the presentations.
Yep.
So I think this carries one of Doug's goals, implements one of Doug's goals a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'm for it.
Okay.
Is this agreeable to you, Doug, then, beginning this
Yeah, I mean, that's
conversation
where-
with the community?
Yeah, I proposed this back in 2013 and it got
Okay, I heard
adamantly shot
somebody,
down. Yeah,
Yeah.
it got
Well,
adamantly-
I've
House
had,
almost burned
I've had
down.
Alan working on reconfiguring the fleet a little bit, and he's got it down to where he'd like to have 4 one-tons. And this isn't just in highway, this is highway and the cemetery and
Right.
parks. And if we can, in fact, get something like this revenue source, we can buy a new one-ton fully equipped every year, every 3 years. And then Alan just has to get 12 years out of them. That's a different issue, we'll deal with that, but if we can just start to get onto a rotation, that would be helpful.
That would be good.
Okay.
Yeah, I like what he presented to capital planning. He's got some really good ideas on, the restructuring of the equipment and, how he intends to utilize it.
He's a
Yeah,
smart
it's
man, he's
pretty
dedicated,
interesting.
and I'm sure that fleet keeps him up at night all the
Yeah.
time, so I'm sure he's
I
got a lot of time to think about.
I don't know how he does it. And this winter's really gonna be a challenge for him.
And I wanna, Alan does the management piece, but I really wanna give kudos to Bob and the guys, the mechanic and such. And we've had a great intern from Narragansett who's been working with him on,
Mhm.
I don't know if you mentioned that.
Mhm.
capital.
Yeah. I don't know.
But it,
With Alan?
yeah,
Really?
Mhm.
Okay, excellent.
we've
Yeah,
been
he's been-
expanding those internship opportunities. And they have a young fellow that's really very much interested in mechanics and diesel and the like, who's turned out to be really a great help.
Excellent.
Great.
Baldwinville Elementary School, the odds are you'll be faced with it being vacant in
2019.
2019.
Mhm.
These are generally very difficult properties to, get rid of.
CDBG.
I was gonna say donate to the EDIC and
No.
let them take it away.
No, that's,
Complete demolition of bricks to the ground, yes.
well, they thought that with the school across the way as well, and they converted that to 4 apartments for low-income
Yeah.
housing.
But it is a process.
Mhm.
You need to have a conversation with the neighborhood.
Right.
You need to deal with the zoning, and even once you identify developers, we did one property in one community where even after we had the developer, he knew exactly what he wanted to do.
Right.
It was 2 years
Right, most of them 2-3
to
years
do
out.
the 35 units, because by the time he applied for the tax credits, and he applied for this, and he applied for that, and all that stuff.
It's a nice piece of
How
property,
how
though,
long
kinda
was the
situated
Athol,
there.
when the Athol converted the old high school to the elderly complex? Yeah, was the old middle school, on School Street. The one on School Street, the old high school on School Street.
Yeah,
That was like a 5-year projected plan, I thought.
it was quite a while.
It was a while. It was like a 5-year projected plan. I mean, now it's beautiful. I mean, they did a really great job, and there's like, I don't know, there's a few units, like 15, 20 units in there. It's a big place.
I mean,
So-
do we have any other uses that are currently needed?
For the town?
I mean, what's the shape of that building? I didn't go to Baldwinville
No, it's
Elementary
not,
School.
it should be, no.
It's condemned?
It should be
essentially?
condemned, but I mean, it needs new windows and roof and heating system and,
So at that point, I mean, if we.
I mean, the major
It's
two
zoned
needs.
residential?
The major two needs that you might have had, have since been addressed.
right.
You've built a senior center,
Mhm.
and you've renovated this building for reuse as your town hall.
Mhm.
So, do we have other needs? We do, but they're fire station, they're police station. They're really nothing that I
To
can
repurpose.
imagine you would repurpose that building for in the middle of this residential neighborhood.
Right.
So what I'm suggesting is that we establish a working group
Mhm.
with a charge and composition.
Yep.
To include someone from the select board, the advisory committee, perhaps a housing advocate, someone from the housing authority, or
Mhm.
someone on affordable housing, someone from the planning board or familiar with planning, someone familiar with real estate development, and a citizen or two at large, hopefully someone from the neighborhood. And we'll figure out how to get them some staff support, we'll get them some dollars
Mhm.
at the annual town meeting. You need to do title searches, you need to have a sense of where the property is. You need some good pictures, you need some drawings of what's there. Hopefully we have quite a bit of this, and that we ask them to put together proposed reuses and an offering statement
Sounds good.
for folks to respond to. This is about a 18-month process. If it marches forward fairly quickly,
Mhm.
If you could
and hopefully,
If you could humor me
Sure.
on, because I'm ignorant on the fact of how this works with towns. We can't obviously go out to a real estate agent and say, hey, post this property. What are our total complete options that we have? Because I don't know what we can and
Well,
can't do as a
a town
municipality.
can, I mean, a town can sell property at market value.
so I think it needs to start from, what do you want to happen? If the only objective is to simply dump it, and you don't care what happens, you can put it up for auction, and an absolute auction, you can do that. Although you're supposed to go through a process to establish the value by
Mhm.
statute.
Right.
And whoever gives you the best dollar, gives you the best dollar, and you're done.
Yeah, because that law changed. You can't sell property for $1, because
Yeah.
back in the day, they used to sell like, town or city structures for $1.
Mhm.
You can't do it. It has to be at market value.
And it has to be a public auction of
It has to be a
some
market
Has to be a
value
public
statement.
auction.
They did that with a lot of the armories, military, National Guard armories here in the state. Back in the day, they were selling for $1, but now obviously that has changed, and
Right.
they are selling all at market value, and contractors are now picking them up and making them into like condos and stuff.
Now, do you
But in
think
that
that'd be-
case, the owner just gets to do whatever they wanna do
Mhm.
in the neighborhood, as long as it meets zoning and they can get the permits.
And
Right.
zoning currently there is residential, isn't it?
Well, it's still in the village,
don't know.
it's a village district. They're in the, I believe they're in the village district.
Yeah, if
of
they're in the village,
Baldwinville.
if it's currently, I think that's, if you can look at it and once again, by informing these citizens of what our intent is to do, what they feel comfortable with, because if we dump it, it seems like we don't care, we just threw it away. So I definitely incorporate them into that conversation, but, I mean, EDIC, maybe they have something that they would be able to reach out and maybe search for something, but at that point, you're looking at 18 months to do low-income housing, or
If
you're
not-
looking at.
I would
If
speak
not longer.
to affordable housing because.
Affordable housing, yeah.
Let's not forget, the person who just got out of college and is gonna be a teacher, and they're only starting at $32,000 a year.
Right,
They need an apartment.
Mhm.
for like $700 a month versus $1,200.
So, I mean, to what extent do you wanna have a conversation with the the neighborhood to make sure it's something compatible.
I think it would just be, it'd be interesting to see what they feel, you know, how they, because I didn't live down that neighborhood. I mean, I know a few people that do live in that neighborhood. I've never talked to them, you know, how they feel about crime statistics or, you know, what the average age is. I don't know any of those demographics. So for me to sit on a board and make decisions about what we wanna do we wanna include this, do we wanna do that? It makes no sense. I can't make that decision without reaching out to them first, you know? And I think that's something that,
You may find you need to amend the zoning.
Maybe. All right, something we can put on the table. I
So
believe it.
is, you know, but I wanted to suggest that we get started on this sooner rather than later.
No, I think it's a good start.
This 2 years will be gone fast.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, we definitely need to start doing that.
is there children in that school
Yes,
currently? There are?
yes.
Okay, and so we established that it wasn't condemned, they're still gonna be there, so we're assuming that FY '19 will be the date, assumed that.
September.
That the school is on budget on time.
If the new school is supposed to be, and I forget exactly what the superintendent told me, but basically 95% complete, ready for occupancy
Assume
May.
that it's on budget, oh,
by May of
okay.
19.
Okay,
So that when everything is packed up in Baldwinville at the end of the school year, it's all transferred over.
Yep.
So that all the files and the books and
okay.
everything have been moved, and they've had a chance to buy all their furniture and equipment,
Mhm.
get it all set up, and the teachers by 1 August can get their room set up and ready to go.
Okay.
So if Fontaine meets that schedule, this building will be empty by the 4th of July.
Of 2019.
Nice
Of
fireworks
2019.
display, if we just,
But again, I will tell you,
They
you are
tried to
going
do
to
that in
be
Detroit.
amazed at how quickly those pages get ripped off the calendar.
Yep, okay.
So, are there other, you know, so I'm talking about someone from the select board, advisory committee, a housing advocate, maybe even appointed by the housing authority, someone with some planning background, perhaps some development background, some citizens at large, perhaps someone from the neighborhood. who
And
can
obviously a
provide
scope and charge will be,
to be determined yet, but basically to have those, collect that data, have those informational meetings, and come to you with a proposal for
okay,
disposition.
sounds good. I'm good with it. Doug?
Sounds reasonable. Yep.
Do we need to put that in the meeting for Monday or to be official?
No, just, we'll bring you something official, within the next couple weeks.
Sounds good.
We'll have it all formally prepared, but I just didn't wanna go to that effort.
No, I understand. Makes sense.
So, lease of Templeton Center Elementary School, normally, a town has a formal lease with the school district
Which we did, I believe for, it was $1, wasn't it?
on the old school.
Oh, the old school. No,
I don't
you mean the
think
new
we've
school?
I don't think you've leased the new school.
No, it's not built yet. Yeah, I thought we were talking about.
And, the two major elements that you really wanna pay attention to are, at what point, at what cost level is something not maintenance that has to be taken care of by the district?
Mhm.
It becomes a capital item that you have to cover.
Right.
And again, that 10, 12, 14 years before the first boiler dies or something, you'll be surprised how quickly those go by.
And I know the last agreement, I think, was 500,000, I believe.
I don't know, I can't speak to that.
I have to
I
look at.
think our current district agreement is 5,000. Repairs of in excess of 5,000 are the town's responsibility, not the district's.
Right.
And the second piece of it is notice. I've seen some communities where the school district got up to April of a fiscal year, the town's budget was already done, and the school district said, oh,
By the way,
by the way, we're closing this school in May, and here you go.
in fact, that's actually happened to us, I believe, with the center school with the roof, remember?
Mm-hmm.
It was before I was elected. I mean, it was a couple of years before I came into office, but I know the roof was going. It was leaking like into the classrooms, and we knew nothing about it apparently.
And so if, you get a notice in April that all of a sudden, in 2 months, you're gonna have to take care of insuring, patrolling, inspecting, securing, all that. You need more time. So those are the two major elements. But I didn't know if you wanted us to prepare a letter to this district asking them to commence preparation of the lease for the new building. Or you wanna wait on that for a while?
No, I think we should sooner rather than later, as well.
The only thing that I can think of that would be disruptive between now and then would be like macroeconomic conditions. I think that would be really the biggest proponent that would happen between now and then, where if we drafted one now, you know, coming down a year down the road, the financial score may be different.
It really, in the end, it comes down to what is the level going to be, the difference gonna be between maintenance and capital, and how much notice are they gonna give you?
Right.
Since they're the ones who are taking care of the building.
Mhm.
And how much notice of abandonment are they gonna give you?
Right.
Again, I'm not sure that, and again, I could be wrong, because I haven't really studied any leases or anything. I don't believe those are really covered in the lease of the building. I think that's included in the regional agreement.
This isn't a,
I will go and look.
Yep.
So let me table this one for now.
yeah, because I'm not sure
I'll
the,
check the
because
regional agreement.
there's the, it's the elementary school is not a regional school.
Well,
Right.
technically, aren't all our schools?
No, the high school,
regional?
middle school
High
is.
school,
The
middle
elementary
school
school
are.
is not a regional school, that is a
Elementaries are.
Templeton.
High school and
School.
middle school are owned by the regional.
That's
You
correct.
own your proportionate share and are responsible.
Which even that agreement, I think,
Proportionate debt
because that
So
agreement
we-
was,
with Phillipston.
Okay.
The elementary school in Templeton will be 100% owned by Templeton.
Mhm.
You lease it to the district.
Mhm.
They insure it, maintain it, do all those things for a period of time. You need to specify at what level does something no longer be maintenance and now it's capital.
Mhm.
You need some advance notice on that.
right,
And if they determine, and this would be years into the future, if they determine that for some reason they no longer want to use the building and deliver that notice to you, you want some time to prepare to take it over.
That's something that's signed off by the school committee, right? So when we draft this lease proposal,
No,
it goes through
It would be by the superintendent, I
it's
would
by,
think.
just superintendent then?
it would be, you mean the lease be signed by who? The lease
Yeah,
should be
yeah, I'm wondering who's binding this agreement, so. if
Would
we
be the
did-
superintendent, I believe.
Generally, it's the school district, but it depends upon the district agreement and whatever rules they may have up there.
Okay.
Generally, it's the select board and the school district. But let me look at the regional agreement and put this one on hold for the moment.
Okay.
Just two reminders, if I can. We have the convention of the committees coming up on January 16th.
Convention of the committees.
The all boards meeting,
All boards meeting.
whatever you
Yep.
wanna call it.
Mm-hmm, I got you.
Um,
When, in that location, have you got a,
We're working on that now.
okay,
But I'm not sure who's taking the lead on that. Last year, we projected didn't work quite
yeah,
right.
that was me,
I think some of the committees weren't quite clear as to what we were trying to do.
right.
Tying into that, normally, the chairman that I've worked with in the past in a number of communities have done a state of the town message.
Yep.
I actually make that one of my shows.
Yep.
Holly's working on that now. We're gonna rebuild the pages.
I'm working my
This
speech
month's-
right now.
Guest was the superintendent, so we can try to get information out to the public on that. We'd like to have you as doing the state of the town, if that's agreeable with the board at large.
I have no problem, you guys have a problem with that?
I have a
And then my
huge problem.
my
I'm sure
following,
you do.
well, the thing that does, it does two things. One is it lets the community, it does three things. Lets the community know what you've accomplished in the past year, and he has to write it for the annual report anyways. It lets the community know about your vision for the coming year.
Yep.
And it lets the community know, hopefully, that many of the things I do when I'm putting the budget together, I'm doing because I'm told to do them. And that it's not all about me.
Right.
I'm working for the board.
Yeah.
So it accomplishes those three things.
That's good.
I think that's a responsibility for the chairman, absolutely. So,
Thanks,
And
man.
then my
Appreciate
other,
it.
my other guest in February will be Chief David Dickey. We want to get him out front, talking about the revenue stream on the ambulance and that, because we think that's got some real challenges to it, and we wanna begin that conversation with the community as early as we can.
Right.
And we're open to suggestions at any time. I do one a month, they last about an hour.
I think having the department heads, I think, would be great. And I think, having Chief Dickey to talk about that, just so people can understand, the challenges that he's facing with the revenue stream based on the insurances and what's coming out of the ALS services.
And so, between you and Chief Dickey, whoever wants to go first, January, February, whatever, because we actually tape one the last week of, we tape them the last week of the month. Okay?
Okay,
And that's all we had for you this evening.
great. Anybody else have anything to add? Nothing?
I don't.
I would like to see probably in the near future the Board of Selectmen policies and procedures, and also the procurement work that you and Diane worked on together. I think that would be great if we can see that.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the status is with Diane. I don't know if you've been in contact with her about
I'll
procurement.
speak to you after Ken.
Okay.
But I've been looking at procurement. I know it's an issue that we're facing. I know that it's something that we need to get done sooner rather than later. So the Board of Selectmen policies that we had, I don't know if you had a chance to go through and read those. But once again, there's errors in there. We need to identify and make sure that you guys did read them and
Yep.
just hammer that out and get that as an operating statement moving forward. But those procurement policies, I'm at a loss with them, so.
I can speak to you about that.
Okay, great. Holly, can you send out the drafts again? You sent them to Holly, right?
Yeah, that'd be good.
For
The,
selectmen policies?
yes.
Yeah.
Can you just send them out tomorrow, again, just to the select board? And then
If
we
you need them
can,
again, let me know.
that way we can all,
Okay.
that way it's fresh, and that way we can look at them again, identify.
Eric and Pam Rogers from Public Works
Mhm.
went to the training on the combine system
Oh, good.
last week. And Eric was told to learn a lot, to be prepared to be train the trainer,
Mm.
that he could train, he and Pam could train. So after the first of the year, we'll offer some of that. We really want to encourage people to use the state contract system as much as possible. Truthfully, even if we spend a little bit more for the purchase, having a procurement which reduces our time and which ties into a process that we know went through every single appropriate step,
Right,
so that
there's no chance.
we don't live, sleep, and eat and breathe this stuff every day the way they do.
Right,
Mhm.
It can reduce the questions as well.
okay.
So that's why we sent two of them, and we want them to have that training
That'd be
available
great.
to everyone.
And the Maya conference is coming up in January, correct?
Yes.
So keep that in mind.
I was also going to reach out to Phillipston and Winchton, and I pointed in two different directions there, the opposite directions.
I know what you
But-
meant, though.
But I'm reaching out to the other communities to see if any of them are going. Because I know we have that, Doug, are you going?
To what?
The Maya conference,
The
Further
MMA
schedule.
conference coming up in January?
for the MMA conference.
No, probably not.
Okay, because they have that
Okay.
networking dinner there,
Mhm.
and I was wondering if they wanted to join us at a table, together, and we can all,
Okay,
talk about fun selectmen stuff, so
great.
kind of brush elbows and see what their struggles and pain points are, so.
So real quick on the server project, we are doing the upgrade on the server on the 15th
Awesome.
of this month, and then following Monday, which will be 15, 16, 17, on the 18th, we'll work with the staff to get connected to the new server and have all the security and everything in place, and have a better control of our data after that.
And that's gonna allow for like working from home and stuff like that, remote logins and anything, or is it
No.
just,
No, it's just creating Active Directory and establishing, the ability to secure data.
so do we have, is it gonna incorporate a shared drive at some point?
Yeah, there will be 3 drives. There will be a U drive, which is a user drive, which is like the My Documents
Mhm.
now, except it won't live on the C drive, it'll live on the server.
Yeah, gotcha.
There will be an N drive, which is a network drive, if you will, that is gonna be department related.
Mhm.
So each department will be able to have folders, create folders, secure documents that their department can utilize.
Mhm.
And then there will be a P drive, which is a public drive that anybody that's authenticated to the network can access what's in the P drive.
Okay.
Excellent.
And access to all the drives with the town administrator and the fellow, correct?
The administrator will be able to, of the system, will be able to access everything.
Okay.
And it'll set the stage for us to move into new email, new protocols
Great.
as well, with another step, I think, of professionalizing the image of the organization.
Yes.
And not only as we can try to get people to move off these Gmails and Yahoos and Hotmails, where they shouldn't be.
No.
Can
.gov.
help perhaps create more of an image of a single organization.
Which would be perfect.
Right, and then having that foundation in place gives us the ability to do, future things. If we choose to do cloud stuff, we can still have the validation. Or if we choose to bring in the other buildings and attach them to the same domain,
Right.
then all of that structure is already in place.
Start here, then work our way out.
Right, so that's the
Makes sense.
step 1.
Hey, you guys take the first step, first baby steps. But, good job, Doug. That's awesome. Okay, I can take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second?
any other discussion? See none. Doug? Yep. Pam?
Yes.
Chair votes yes as well. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you,